recently talked about how the current crop of leaders need to be phased out in order for a fresh set of young individuals to take over the affairs of the country. This birthday hashtag, not too young to run, trending on social media, with Nigerian youths across the country clamoring for a young president. From the names that emerged during the 2019 presidential elections, Omoyele Sowore was one of the candidates who made a push to compete against the political heavyweights in Nigeria. As we head towards the election year, the human rights activist just last month formally announced his intention to contest for the position of Nigeria's president in the 2023 general elections. Sowore, while making his declaration, said that he will run a socialist government focusing on workers' welfare, free education, job creation, and pension reforms. Joining us now on this program as we discuss his presidential bid and plans for the country is Omoyele Sowore. Welcome to the show, Sowore. Good to have you on the morning show.
Thank you. Good morning, and thanks for bringing me on your show.
Okay, first, I guess it would be appropriate first to congratulate you on your victory in court last week when the Court of Appeal ruled that the restraining order, the bail conditions that you were given in 2019, restricting your movement to Abuja, the Federal Capital Territory, that those conditions were excessive. The Court of Appeal, in its wisdom, has now lifted that. So how do you feel about that? And that ruling, does it extend to your associate, Olakunle Bakare, who was restricted to remain in Osun State, specifically in Osogbo, permanently, and you to remain in Abuja permanently? How do you feel? And how has it been since 2019? Let's start from there.
Well, I've been saying it even before 2019 that the system will come after me. And when they did, I was prepared for it. And the penalty imposed upon me was basically to obtain a conviction and some kind of custodial detention wherever possible without actually obtaining a conviction from the court. And the same applied to the young guy who was brought into detention from Osun State, who barely knew me before we met in the DSS detention. He was also brought in, he was restricted. We were both detained for almost 5 months, and then he was restricted to Osun State. The circumstances are the same. There's no reason for us to split here about whether he benefits from mine or not. It's the same case, the same circumstance, or the circumstances and the conditions are the same. So if mine is lifted, his is also automatically lifted. But, I knew this would happen, and I made the best use of my time in Abuja. This is, as you know, I'll probably be the third person who's ever restricted to a city after Pai Modu before independence, who was restricted to Auchi, and Chief Obafemi Awolowo, 1963, who was restricted to Lekki area of Lagos. I share that honor with these two great men. So I've been restricted to Abuja for 3 years now, not allowed to even go to Nasarawa State, see my family, see my mom, or even attend the burial of my brother who was brutally murdered during that unjust incarceration.
Wow. Really sobering indeed. Well, that leads me to my next question. I'm going to refer you to the cover of today's This Day newspaper. It's Igbo's turn to produce president in 2023. Afenifere, MBF, Pandev insist. Declare Yoruba's presidential bid inelegant. Now, even apart from today's cover, it's impossible to have missed the zeitgeist of the recent past in Nigeria, where there's been a clamor for a Southeast president of Nigeria. You have always fought for fairness and justice and equity in this country. It begs the question, why then are you running? Would you say your aspiration as a Yoruba person is inelegant, as is described in today's newspaper?
Well, each time there's an election cycle, the political elites in Nigeria who make these decisions, which is undemocratic, we throw a bone at the Nigerian people, the political space. And their sing-song this time around is that they want an Igbo to become a president. And it is not a decision that was taken with the consent and the affirmation of the Nigerian people. If you go to Igbo land today, or where we are now known as Biafra, they are not even interested in your elections. So how do you tell IPOB members that it's their turn to become president when they are agitating for a referendum? They're agitating for self-determination. The Yoruba people you refer to, nobody went to Yoruba to ask what they want. Nobody went to Nigerians. And I do not describe myself in ethnic, under ethnic banners. I do not accept and never allow myself to be boxed into a corner, because when I'm fighting for justice, I'm fighting for everybody. I'm fighting for every human being. It's a fight for humanity. It's not a fight for some ethnic enclave. When Nnamdi Kanu goes to court and I go to Abuja High Court and I sometimes almost get stabbed or killed, I'm not asking about his ethnicity. I'm fighting for his rights. If Sunday Igboho is attacked and people are taken from his house, killed, including his cat, when I go to court to fight for him or join others to ensure that they get justice, it's not because I'm thinking of it as a Yoruba man. When I fight for the Shiites who were massacred in Zaria, I'm not fighting for them because they are Hausas or Fulanis or Kanuris. I'm fighting for them because they are human beings. And all of these people, Nigerians, whether you have an ethnic nationality banner or nomenclature, are entitled to good governance. They're entitled to democracy. They're entitled to progress. So an Igbo man becoming president of Nigeria will not make a difference if he's not the right person to lead, because we've done it before. We had a Yoruba man who was president of Nigeria. The Yoruba people did not even vote for him in 1999 because they knew he would not take them to the so-called promised land. And he disappointed. You had an Ijaw man who was president for several years in Nigeria. He did not make the Ijaw nation a better nation. He did not stop pollution. He did not give them roads. He didn't give them electricity. So why are we now wasting our time having conversation about? We should zone the presidency to the geographical area or the intellectual area known as competence and great character.
Okay, so in this debate, I'd like to ask you, Omoyele Sowore, what makes a good president?
Well, a good president is a person with character, a person with competence, a person with exposure, a person who has a very solid understanding of how to govern, bring people together. It's also the chief human resources officer of a country, because the president of any nation, even if there are 200 people in that country, cannot do all the jobs. So he has to bring in all kinds of hands to make it happen, to make sure that the country is well governed. And we don't have a shortage of that in Nigeria. What we have a shortage of is the processes that produce the right people to govern the country. These processes, individuals, political parties, and machineries, and also mercenaries have thwarted our ability to elect the most competent amongst us. That's why we get insulted that it's time to bring an Igbo president. It's a very divisive strategy to make people believe that if you bring an Igbo president to Nigeria, suddenly Nigeria will become El Dorado. As if it is not an Igbo president, an Igbo governor, that has detained a pastor for months now. And some of them, were the ones who started the massacre of IPOB members when they were governors, when one of them was the governor of Anambra State, particularly Peter Obi. So we cannot just discountenance the importance of great leaders, people who are competent. That's what this country needs. If I could invent an app that can govern Nigeria very well and make you have roads, electricity, make you have all the great things of life, your schools good for the children, and make the country safe and infrastructures working, would you be asking whether that app is made by an Igbo man or a Yoruba man or made by an Ibibio or a TV? No. You just wake up and be happy. I lived in a part of the U.S. where I didn't know the name of the mayor of my town because things were working. There are some places where you don't even know the governor of the state because it doesn't affect your micro-stability as a human being.
Well, Sowore, let's stay on this a little bit. Yesterday, there was a Greater Nigeria conference in Abuja with the theme Together We Can, led by Afenifere Renewal Group, Middle Belt Forum, and the Pan-Niger Delta Forum. And one of the resolutions is that, look, people from the South-South or from the Southwest should not show interest in the presidential race for 2023 because that will amount, as Payo Adebanjo put it, to allowing the North and its leaders to play the politics of divide and rule, and that there should be consensus on focusing on an able presidency. The emphasis was not on intimidating other people, but equity, fairness, and justice. But from what you are saying, it looks like you don't intend to step down. You don't think that that group is saying anything serious. That's one. But beyond that, can you take us through what your agenda is for Nigeria? Beyond saying revolution now, what do you want to do? Were you to be given the opportunity to lead Nigeria in specific terms, very specific terms?
Well, the first question is about the group that met yesterday. I met with Pa Ayo Adebanjo the night before, somewhere here in Abuja, and I was meeting him for the first time. I have a lot of respect for Pa Adebanjo, but I disagree with him on the issue of them sitting down in a democratic meeting and choosing for Nigerians who should be their next president based on the same problematic ethnic lens with which Nigeria has been destroyed up to this point. Listen, there are generations of Nigerians, and we differ on how these things are going to be handled. And I would say to you that those of us who did not participate in the Civil War, we have a different level of thinking that's different from those who participated in it. And those who were born in 1999, children of democracy, as we call them, who are now about 21 to 22 years old, they don't think like the old people. What we tell them, and I don't have any problem with old people, is that those old ideas should be allowed to rest, and they should not impose it or force it on several generations of Nigerians who want to think differently about how to move this country out of the doldrums. They have tried it before. They've tried all kinds of constitutions. They went to several constituent assemblies, constitutional conferences, and all these things were based on ethnic considerations. And it did not work. I mean, why do we continue to toe the line that has never worked for Nigeria? If you ask an average Nigerian at the time they enjoyed this country, anytime, it would be probably when the country was doing well economically, not when it was governed by somebody from an ethnic group. And, it's very difficult to say that there was a time that Nigeria was doing well economically. But I saw somewhere that there was a time that the dollar was lower in terms of value than the naira. So 78 kobo used to be $1. But now we are 600 naira to a dollar, and we are still digging into the whole of ethnicity, of nepotism, of religiosity. So what if the Muslims turn up tomorrow and said they don't want Christians, which some of them are already doing? How do you resolve that? You understand? The important thing is for young people and the old people to also respect the rights of young people, who are 75% of the population of the country, to decide for themselves how they want their future to be run. All these old people who are naturally on the departure end of life, or launch of life, should just let us be. They must admit that they haven't been able to solve any of the problems confronting Nigeria for 62 years. That's how we found ourselves where we are. If we now sacrifice that opportunity that we have to have some young, vibrant, intellectually sound young people to govern Nigeria, and you go and assign or allocate to Nigeria another president who is probably an ex-convict simply because he's from the Southeast, where are we going to find ourselves? Nowhere. And nobody wants to continue from where we are now, which is nowhere, to another nowhere. So to now go to the specifics of how we intend to solve Nigeria's problem, I am probably the only candidate that you can talk to today who can show you a website, and it's Sowore2023.org, where all these things have been lined up, how we intend to solve the problem of security, problem of power, energy crisis that is facing the country, infrastructure, how we intend to sieve out our macroeconomic policy, fiscal policy, monetary policy, and fix the problem of our criminal exchange rate system, because you have the wrong people in some of these places who are manipulating the system in their own personal interest. We all know all these things. It is the reason why I would never subscribe to another ethnic banger they are throwing at the Nigerian political space right now, is that we can handle all of this without the pain and sorrow that we are going through. And I know you come back to specifics, but I had a conversation with you on your radio show that I will not reveal my specific because there's still enough time. There's a lot of time to go so that your political friends will not steal my ideas and convert it to their own.
Right. We saw the success of APC as a coalition in ousting PDP in 2015, and I think you had a similar idea when you joined PACT, presidential aspirants coming together for the 2019 election. You pulled out, you had your reasons for doing so, but will you be leading your party, the African Action Congress, into another coalition, or will you be going it alone this time?
Well, I want to correct the impression you created that the APC coalition was a success. If it succeeded, we wouldn't be where we are today.
I said they were successful in ousting the PDP. That's a statement of fact. I said they were successful in ousting the PDP.
Yeah, all right.
Yes.
So that's right. It was one criminal set of people ousting, another criminal set. That's what I will tell you. In terms of our political party, we are willing to join hands with Nigerians anywhere, whether they organize other political parties, movements, or there are individuals who want to come together. We don't want to label it coalition because these things are very tenuous. Sometimes it's also very deceitful that you say you are going into coalitions of parties that you yourselves created. One of the reasons why I pulled out of PAC after the first meeting, by the way, because a lot of people didn't know that I pulled out after the first meeting, was we went into a meeting of about 16 presidential aspirants. Never met a lot of them before. Turns out that most of them were from the same political party, and they were brought together to attend that meeting with the purpose of rigging the outcome of that process. And I pulled out after the first day because I was clairvoyant enough to see through the fraud that they were going to perpetrate. So I'm not going to any coalition with just anyhow party or anyhow persons just because I want to create an impression that we're a big political coalition. What we need this time around is a coalition of the oppressed. And for those who have been cheated in this country to come together under one banner and just make sure that we fix our country and we push out those who have put this country in the terrible condition that it is today. And we know them. And because some of them would also throw curveballs at you, they will try strategies to approach you and say, why don't you join us? When you join halfway, you discover that you have just entered into a very terrible tunnel. And the only light at the end of it is an oncoming train. We don't want to fall into that trick.
What would a Sowore do about Nigeria's mounting debt levels, which a lot of people say is astronomical? And what would you do about this cesspit of subsidy that keep taking everything of our resource away from us?
I will address the issue of the debt issue. I mentioned before, this is a function of macroeconomic policy. And the major three components is, of course, how you design your your fiscal policy. Fiscal policy, in this sense, is how we spend and what we borrow. And I will tell you that the government of Nigeria has borrowed, this current government, the Buhari regime has borrowed Nigeria back into the Stone Age, or Stone Ages, if you can call it that. And what we need to do is to have a commander-in-chief of the armed forces who is also very economically sound, who understand how the economy of the country should be run, how much we should borrow, because it's in essence of our debt to GDP ratio. If you're spending half of or more than half of your annual budget in servicing debt, you're gone. And so what I would do as president is to go to those who have been borrowing money to us and ask them, how much are we really owing, and what are the conditions and terms under which these transactions were carried out? Because I'm sure that this regime probably didn't look at the fine print of those loans. So we need a moratorium for repayment immediately and investigate what we borrowed, because it happened before that we're told that we owed a certain amount of money. Nobody could find out who we're owing. It was just made a rough calculation, and we paid back money we didn't owe. At the end of the day, turns out that it was a scam. Those who packaged the asset will be getting $1 billion back. That's as revenue for paying those loans, and it never happened. So that moratorium is something that we pursue immediately and ensure that we just don't pay back loans. And where necessary, with integrity, we can start some legal default on some of the criminal loans that people are taking right now. But I would also go to subsidy very quickly, because I know you don't have all the time in the world, and I don't, is that you are not subsidizing petroleum resources for the Nigerian people. You are subsidizing the rich. We know what is happening in those areas. Under Goodluck Jonathan in 2012, when we were fighting against subsidy, people were saying, no, we need it, we need it. When we did the struggle up to a point, we discovered that it was the rich that was being subsidized, because they were bringing in water into Apapa Port, Tin Can Island, Atlas Cove, where they discharge petroleum products. And they will just write it back and get paid. Some of the cases are still in court today. We found that in a particular case, a major vessel that had sunk 10 years before 2012 was bringing fuel to Nigeria. How is that possible? It's the same thing that is going on under this regime. Anytime you see them telling you they are allocating trillions to subsidy, just know that election is around the corner, and they are looking for money at all costs to run for election. I'm sure that is what is happening again. But the other subsidy that is happening that you people are not even talking about is the criminal repairs that are going on at our refineries. And the refineries are not working, but we keep repairing refineries that are not working. And we shamelessly will go and commission a refinery that was built for about 4.1 trillion naira, which is the same amount of money we are using for subsidy.
Okay, Sowore.
Who is owned by an individual.
Sowore.
But we cannot build refineries in our country, or fix 4 refineries that could have solved the subsidy problem. It's a shame. And that is why these leaders that you have in Nigeria must not only be consigned to the dustbin of history, some of them need to go to the ICC to face crimes against humanity.
Okay, Sowore, we have just about 2-3 minutes to go, so quickly. You were saying one set of criminals replace another set of criminals, but we look at the field now. It's the same set of criminals who seem to be better prepared. You are running on the platform of African Action Congress. But in PDP, people are paying 40 million to get presidential nomination form. In APC, they are paying 100 million. Your platform, AAC, has no money. You yourself, you have not shown that you have cash. You have launched a Sowore Political Action Committee on internet.
Committee?
Yes, to raise money. Since first week of April up till now, you've been able to raise only 852,000 naira. Not enough to even print posters across the country. How do you intend to pursue this matter without money?
Well, I want to correct the impression that I've only raised 850-something thousand. No, that's not correct. We've raised more than that, and on a monthly basis, we make those outcomes open to the public. I mean, the accounting. We've not raised, the kind of criminal money that is spent in these political parties. But the important thing is to understand that money is not only cash. There is cash, there is kind. There's human sweat, there is citizen equity, as I like to call it. People who on their own, as we're speaking, are tweeting about what I'm saying, are talking to people based on my talking points. People who are saying, look, we cannot continue like this, and they are investing their own time. There are people who are printing posters on their own. There are people who are putting contents out there on the internet, people who are paying for radio, paying for social media postings, boosting some of the things I've said. That has made it possible for me to be way ahead of some of the people who are paying 100 million naira. Because Nigerian people understand that nobody amongst these guys will be willing to invest his own 100 million naira to take a form. When the salary of the president of Nigeria in 4 years is 56 million naira, I think. So if you are not going there to steal, why would you buy the form for 100 million naira when your salary is just half of that? It's obvious that anybody who has done that should actually be facing trial for money laundering and other financial crimes that's associated with how they got the money. And I'm sure it is the public till. They stole from the public and then reinvested this. Like I think President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo once said, and I never agree with that man, but on that one I agree with him, that anybody who told you that somebody bought him a form, never vote for him, because nobody will buy a Nigerian politician 100 million naira form or 40 million naira form to do anything. I told you in 2019, we raised less than 200 million naira, but our 200 million naira campaign shook this country till today to the point that those who spent billions have not recovered from our participation in 2019. And by 2023, it will be over for them. Money will be shamed. Cash will be consigned to dustbin because the cash they have no value. Our ideas cost a lot more than all these firms and their investments, their crooked investments combined.
Okay, thank you very much, Omoyele Sowore, for joining us on the morning show.
Nigeria, they use computer. The leaders of Nigeria, they use radio where they turn the knob.